There's a lot of information I'm going to give you, and this is relevant with a lot of this stuff just happened. So I'm going to be sharing my screen with you. First things first is I want to show you this picture about Jensen Huang. And Jensen Huang right here, this is on CNBC today. He's talking about, this is today, this morning on Squawk Box. Get a chance to listen to this interview because they finally asked him a really good question. They asked him lots of questions. He's talking about all kinds of AI, what's going to happen, and I get it. But he's talking about demand for AI computing has got up substantially in the last 6 months. That's an understatement. And when you're looking at the latest deals, Jensen believes that there's going to be $4 trillion in spending that's going to take place over the next 5 years. If you want to put that in perspective, you're looking at total addressable market for cancer is $250 billion, right? So he's talking about $4 trillion in spending. Cybersecurity is a $200 billion market. That's every company in the world, all the biggest S&P 500 companies protecting their data, protecting everything. Cybersecurity, massive industry. It's $200 billion. He's talking about $4 trillion in spending. This is going to print more millionaires over the next 3-4 years than probably any single trend we've seen. And I've been doing this for 30 years, right? So I'm not bullshitting you. When I look at how much is going to be spent, we want to find out who is going to get some of that spending. And if it's a small cap, you need 0.00001%, and your stock's going to go up 3x, 4x, 5x, right? And that's what we want to do. We've done that with our AI portfolio. We have an AI newsletter called Curzio AI. And in that newsletter, we have gains that are up 400%, several are up 200%. And, we're not really cherry picking. We have great contacts in this industry that reach out to us that actually help build the data centers for these companies that are executive VPs, even hedge fund managers, and Department of Defense and everything. So it's really cool, right? We have great contacts that help us get into the right areas. And that's what's happening, this transition. So let me get into it right now, because when you look at how much computing power we're going to need, and we could talk about this first, is the demand for deals. And I wrote some of these deals down because this is September. Okay, this is only since September. You get a NVIDIA deal with CoreWeave, $6.3 billion. Anthropic raises $13 billion for $183 billion valuation. Musk XAI raised $10 billion, gave that company a $200 billion valuation. Oracle, remember that quarter stock shot up 30%? Received massive investment from OpenAI. It pushes backlog from $150 billion to $450 billion. That was just a few deals. Now, recently, OpenAI raised money for a $500 billion valuation. They also took a 10% stake in AMD. We're going to get to a lot of that too. Is the government going to take stakes in some of these companies? They're doing it in most of the metal companies, right? So, and uranium could be next. That's a question I'm going to ask Amir. You look at Samsung and Hynix did a deal with NVIDIA. They're going to supply 100 high-end DRAM chips. If you add up all these deals, this is just the past 30, 40 days, it's $500 billion in deals. So if you think Jensen Huang is full of shit, what he's saying, $4 trillion, it's probably conservative. But the bigger point is not just the spending, because we could say this is going to be in a bubble. Yes, it could be in a bubble, right? But as long as the spending is taking place and they're building these AI systems, they're competing against each other, you're going to need more power. And that's what this is all about. Because if you're looking at the power, why is it so off for? And when I do my estimates of being a research analyst for 30 years, everybody has this wrong because they don't understand this market. Because right now, the power that we're going to need and the gigawatts we're going to need, they're basing it on the current chips. And those chips, the next generation, which we're probably going to see Jensen Huang at the Consumer Electronics Show. I was there last year for his presentation in Vegas. It's every year at the Consumer Electronics Show. They're going to announce their new chips like every 9 months. And those chips, the power that they're going to require is massive. And why is that? Because we're going into a different generation of AI that you probably heard of. But on a PowerPoint, when it comes to the power part, people are still behind. So we're talking about agentic AI. And they have traditional AI, agentic AI. So traditional AI is like the large language models, whether it's Claude, whether it's ChatGPT, whatever you use in Llama, right? It asks a question, gives you an answer. Fine. It takes a lot of power just to do that. And I'll explain that in a second. Agentic AI is a total different animal. We're in the first inning of this trend. Okay, agentic AI is reasoning. It's figuring out problems. And this is going to be done autonomously. And just to show you the energy that is needed for this, okay, this is going to blow you away. Okay, Google search, 0.3 watt hours of electricity, fine. And you probably heard, well, a single ChatGPT query is 25 times more power, which you're probably not hearing. What we're in the first inning is this right here. Agentic AI requires 79 times more power than large language models. What does that mean? It means that we're going to need a shitload of power, right? Nobody's really forecasting for this. So when I look at the forecast, and my job as an analyst is to look at Kinsey, Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, they provide estimates of how many gigawatts we're going to need over the next year, 2 years, 3 year, 5 year. And when I look at some of these forecasts, like McKinsey, this is a crazy forecast. 219 gigawatts are going to be needed by 2030. Okay, that's a crazy forecast. Goldman's a little under that. If you look at a gigawatt of power, just to put in perspective, is enough to power 700,000 homes. So if you're looking at how many that we're going to need, it's insane, right? So when you look at McKinsey saying 219, and then you look at Goldman, and Goldman's up there, and I think it's a little bit below. As much as that is, it's significantly underestimating how much power we're going to need. And one company is called RAND. These guys have been around since World War II, independent, good consulting firm. Look at what they have here, this number. They have Goldman Sachs estimate, they have McKinsey estimate. This estimate is 327, meaning that if you take that off of what we already have, you're looking at least 240 more additional. Okay, so if you compare that to something like McKinsey, which has had, you're looking at like 156. We're going to need more like 240 gigawatts. If you're looking at 240 gigawatts, guys, this is the new generation of chips that are going to require much more power that I know from my data center contacts that build these things. That you're going to need more power. 327, okay, so say about 240. If you might, that's about 240 gigawatts that we're going to need. That's enough to power 168 million homes. If you want to put that in perspective, all of America, we have 150 million homes. We're going to have to build a new America. They're so wrong on this when it comes to the estimates, other than this company RAND, which I was surprised to find one. With the amount of power going to need. It costs billions of dollars to build this shit. We know that, right? And that's not a problem because the hyperscalers all have the billions to throw at everything, all new technologies and everything, which we're going to cover today. What they don't have is the time. That's going to be a problem. And when you're looking at the time, it's going to take 3 to 5 years to build a 5 gigawatt plant. We're looking at 240. Doing the math, I have no idea how they're going to do this. If you're wondering why you see companies like Oklo or companies like SMR or companies like Bloom Energy, and Bloom Energy we have in our portfolio, when I realized this about 9 months ago, they have to buy into these new technologies. And SMRs aren't even going to be available for a while, right? You look at a company, Oklo has a $20 billion plus market cap, and they're not going to generate revenue, not profits, profits, revenue. They're not going to generate revenue until 2027, 2028 at a $20 billion valuation. 5 times sales, which is conservative for a technology company. You're looking at $100 billion in revenue this company has to generate just to fit into that valuation. And why is that valuation so high? Because we need freaking energy, and they're in dire need for it. That's why Microsoft's signing deals with 3 Mile Island to restart that plant. And that's going to take 5 years. Not only is it going to take 5 years, that's if you get state, local, federal approval, they booked out another 20 years after that. So again, someone that's been doing this for this long, you don't see those types of contracts unless these guys are desperate. And you may be saying, well, Frank, why are they so desperate? How come you're not hearing about it? Because you're not looking. We know where to look. And they're all saying it. All the hyperscalers, they met the White House not long ago. Trump was talking to Tim Cook and said, how much you're billing in America? How much you're going to spend now on American plants? He's like, 500 billion. And Trump's like, say it again. That meeting wasn't about that, but all technology, guys. It was about how in the hell are we going to get enough electricity to power this? Because agentic AI is here, right? That's bots. That's millions and millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of these things are going to do people's job. Frank, you know what? You're crazy. We're going to have enough power. We're not going to have blackouts. Well, here's what some of the biggest power suppliers are saying. PGM, huge. I think it's 13 states in Northeast. Listen to what they say. Is it possible the current pace of new entry would be insufficient to keep up with expected retirements and demand growth by 2030? Now, when they say keep up with expected retirements, they're talking about retirements is going to be coal, right? We're phasing out of coal because coal's the worst thing in the world. Let me tell you something. We were phasing out of coal a lot faster 2 years ago, and now everyone's like, whoa, we need to put on the brakes a little bit because we're really not going to have electricity. So coal's not even phasing out that much. But we want to phase out of coal, which is going to create even more of a deficit of power. If we look at the Department of Defense and what they're saying. If current retirement schedules and incremental additions remain unchanged, most regions will face unacceptable reliability risks within 5 years. And the nation's electrical power grid will be unable to meet expected demand for AI. They're saying it, the hyperscalers know it, but they just don't want to sound the alarm. You want to know what the alarm sound for you is? I could tell you, I'll show you a picture right now. This is your alarm. This is from Axios. This is electricity prices for the average U.S. household. You haven't seen nothing yet. It's at 19 cents per kilowatt hour. And look where it was in 2022, right? So we're looking at a 40% increase right off the bat. A lot of these people see it. I'm seeing it. I know you're seeing it, 80% increases over the past few years. This is going to double in 3 years. It's going to double. Your electricity prices are going to skyrocket from here. It's just simple math. We have to. What are these hyperscalers doing? They're trying to lock in power that's portable with Bloom Energy, that's with SMR. They're trying because this way they can come off the grid. Because when you're on the grid, you need power that's 24/7. It's called baseload power. And baseload power would be nuclear, it's natural gas, like solar and wind aren't baseload, right? You need the sun to be out and you need the wind to be blowing to get power. However, you need it during peak hours. When we have peak hours, we already saw blackouts in California and Texas. Now throw in all the data centers, and it's pretty crazy. The people who control electricity are called ERCOT. ERCOT is not just Texas, it's a bunch of other states as well. And They're forecasting electricity prices. Now, electricity demand has been flat for decades. And now they're forecasting 2% growth, which is a game changer. It means you need massive hundreds of billions of dollars in infrastructure spend. That's what they're forecasting now, 2% annual growth over the next 5 years. However, when you look to certain places like ERCOT is Texas and the surrounding areas, maybe it's Louisiana, Arkansas, and stuff like that, they're expecting, and let me put this here, 9% growth. Okay, this is 9% annual growth rate, and this is for 2026, and it's going to go up to 14% the next year. This is unheard of. Okay, so the energy crisis is here. It's how we're going to make money off of it, because you can just sit back and pay higher electricity bills for your house and stuff like that. What we want to do and what we've done over the past years, we've gotten ahead of a lot of these trends because of the contacts we have. That's what we want to do right now. We want to get ahead of this. So we're going to share lots of stock picks with you. We're going to give away lots of free stock picks. They're going to be small caps as well. We gave away 3 in our last event, and they're doing very well. I'll share those again. In fact, I can share them right now. It's Bloom Energy. Bloom Energy was not going to be in our pick 2 weeks ago, but it fell 15% of the downgrade and immediately recouped 25% of that. I think we're up 25% of that stock. DigiPower, DGXX, is a company that owns all of their power. They own 100 megawatts of power, and they were a Bitcoin miner and puts Bitcoin miners in play. Because Bitcoin miners is called tier 1 assets. That's for Bitcoin mining electricity. When you transfer over to tier 3, that's data centers. The difference is tier 1, each megawatt is worth $1 million. When you go to tier 3, each one of those megawatts are worth 10 to 50. It's 10x to 15x more, 10 to 15 million. That's what this small company is doing. That's what a lot of Bitcoin miners are doing. They're transferring their energy over, saying, okay, Bitcoin, we got the halving. Our margins are going to get cut in half all the time. We're not going to get as much Bitcoin. Fine. Let's transfer some of that energy over, sign with the hyperscalers, and that's the hyperscalers have all the cash. They have hundreds of billions of dollars to spend, right? They're going to spend $400 billion this year. Let's convert it and create the perfect scenario where they could use our energy and use our systems for AI. And that's what's going on. And the last pick we recommend is Uranium Royalty. Uranium companies are on file. Uranium Royalty just owns royalties in almost all the major, if not all of them. I think it's 20-something royalties. And instead of trying to pick the one that works out, and they're all working out now, nuclear's on fire again, why not pick the one that's going to work out if any of these companies do well, right? And this company's going to be generating a shitload of money from those royalties going forward. They have deals with Cameco, Orano, which was a Reaver back in the day. It's a private company, some of the biggest companies in the world. And they have all these streams that are going to come in as we produce, right? And that name's up a lot. So those are 3 names we gave. We're going to give a lot more.